everybody, it's Margaret, and welcome to the Boboleros podcast. I think this is episode 8, if I'm not mistaken. 8 is a great number. 8 is the number of new beginnings. I know this because I researched this a long time ago, and I was always excited whenever the number 8 would enter my life. And so I'm so happy to share this episode with you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for this community, which is just the most favorite part for me, is this community and reading your comments and just feeling this connection with you all and meeting new friends. I feel this amazing joy. So thanking you so much for being here and for your comments. And I really am so touched by the fact that many of you had said that you appreciate the musical segments and that you don't mind me sharing some of my musical adventures here on this channel too. Of course, the bulk of my musical adventures are on my Margaret Wasik YouTube channel, but thanking you for just that encouragement and that it resonates. And I do believe that beautiful, like when we knit, we're knitting to make beauty, right? And so I think there is in our community just a proclivity towards beauty in many different aspects, whether it's the beauty of nature, the beauty of fashion, the beauty of design, the beauty of music. And so everything goes together. I think that that's one of the things that I appreciate the longer I live, is the connectivity of all things. It's something that the ancient Greeks knew so well and appreciated. They didn't see the arts as being separated from even everyday life. In fact, they saw the role of doctors and the role of musicians and the role of artists as being all connected. And so, anyway, before I get too much on a tangent, I'd like to just share one of the things that I've been working on this week from a musical standpoint, tell you a quick story about this plant, and then on to the knitting content. This week, I was really excited because did you ever have something that you acquired a while ago? You know, whether it's like a new piece of technology or a new kit for something, or, you know, the materials to do a project. But the problem was that you didn't really know how to do it. And so you just kind of let it linger because that was too much of a mountain to climb. Yeah. So that was my story this week. About 10 years ago, I got a software to compose music with. And in case you don't know, I studied composition way back in my days in Juilliard, and it's something that I've always loved to do, but don't like to actually sit down and do it. So, like, to write things analog is the way I would compose, you know, just with the pad and the paper and the, you know, pencil and a lot of erasing. And that's how I would compose. But yeah, I knew that I had this program that allowed me to just hook up my digital keyboard and compose that way, and it would just write the music for me. But that is not as easy as it sounds either, because you have to edit everything, and it's like a whole other thing. So I just never used this program. And then I was trying to make a trailer video for a new series that will be on my YouTube channel, and also a series I'm doing in conjunction with a local library here called Magical Moments of Music with Margaret. Okay, I know that sounds a little bit funny. I like the alliteration a lot with the M's, but it was so hard to come up with that title because although the premise of this series is to be somewhat of a music appreciation kind of course, when it comes to music, I wanted people to experience it rather than necessarily like this knowledge thing, like, you know, Mozart came to Vienna in 17, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I didn't want it to be like that. I wanted it to be like, can we feel what Mozart might have felt when he wrote this chord, and like listen to the angst in that chord, and like all of us experience it and just live it? Yeah, that was more my idea. So I realized magical moments are there for us all at any time. I needed music to portray this series, and I was thinking like what music would go with it, and I had something in my mind and I couldn't quite find it, so I had to create it. So here comes the part where I had to learn this program. And you know what happened? I think to do what I needed to do, like to figure out the solution to my problem, that part wasn't this like intense 3-day process. It turned into like a thing. I figured out how to do it in just a few hours and was able to do it. So I'm going to share with you this original short piece that I wrote in conjunction with some video to promote this series, and it's just less than 2 minutes long, and I'm going to insert it here, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so today we're going to talk about perfect recipes, like miracle, awesome recipes. My friend yesterday was telling me, Margaret, you know what? There is a recipe that has ancient roots, and it's for a beautiful oil. And you take, she said, like, she named all these oils, like the oil of acacia and olive oil and cinnamon and something else, and it myrrh, and you make this incredible oil with it, and it's just like, and the way it smells, and I was like, she's like, it's a miracle recipe, and that's what it's called. It's like got ancient, even biblical roots, and I thought, wow, a recipe, yeah. Like if somebody gives you the recipe, like for the perfect chocolate chip cookie, I am down for that, because I am yet to find the perfect recipe. If you have a recipe like for your favorite perfect chocolate chip cookies, please do share, because I've tried so many. I'm always doing the Tall House like as my default, but the results are not always the same. And I've tried the thing with the butter, you know, like room temperature, whatever. Anyway, but I digress. In any case, a recipe, having the right recipe is everything. This plant is the recipient of an amazing recipe of sound. I'll tell you what I mean. So one of my dear friends is named Mark Wiener, and he's among the greatest piano tuner technicians in the world. He's so different and metaphysical about it that there was a New York Times bestseller written about him called Grand Obsession by an author, Perry Knies. I'm not sure how you say her last name, but I'm going to link it below because it's a great book. It's not a dry read at all. It's like an adventure story about a woman who buys a piano, and she's a journalist and used to play as a kid, wants to get back to it to sort of like integrate to a creative side of herself that she has abandoned. She falls in love with this piano in this shop in New York City, and it has like this dark, rich, like dark cherry sound, and she calls the piano Marlena. She can't wait to have this piano delivered to her, and when it comes, Marlena is gone, meaning her sound is not there anymore, and she is incredulous. What happened to Marlena? Where did she go? She goes on a quest to try to discover what happened. Where is Marlena? Could she get that sound, that richness, that character of Marlena back into the piano? So it's an amazing book. When I read about the tuner who was pivotal in restoring Marlena, since COVID, I became very interested in houseplants and have developed kind of a collection of houseplants all around me. One day I'll show you. And I do spend time in trying to keep them healthy and happy. Well, I was doing well with this guy. But suddenly in December, as Mark is tuning the piano, I look and I realize that this one is now like so sad looking. Dropping leaves, looks completely sad and downtrodden. And although all the needs were being met, the watering, the sunlight, the fertilizer, I couldn't understand like what had happened. But then something amazing happened, and this has to do with those special formulas, like those magical formulas that make all the difference. Well, Mark was tuning with his magical ratios. The next day, I go to my couch, which is right here, next to the plant, and I sit down to knitting away. It's really quiet and really nice. I'm like having a moment. Suddenly, I look at this plant. Literally overnight, it developed new growth, new leaves, new shoots. It was as if it had gone through a metamorphic experience and suddenly came back to life. And of course, the only thing that had changed in that 24 hours was that this instrument was realigned, which then made a resonance that brought a new harmony of realignment for the plant. At least that's the way I interpret it. In any case, Mark is a guy that has a special ability to have the recipe. And it's not an easy recipe to know how to tune a piano well. His tunings have been called, that when one listens to the pianos he tunes, that it's like ripples of sunlight on a lake. And it's just such a beautiful, clear, cool kind of vibration. So I am blessed that I can have this in my life and try to share it through my YouTube channel and even house concerts, because I wish I could take this on the road, but I can't. So getting back into doing the house concerts. So anyway, If you're in the New Jersey, New York area and are interested in any of these things, house concerts or, magical tunings, then do leave me a message. All right. What does this have to do with knitting? Well, a lot. I have come to the realization after 20 plus years of knitting that knitting, for me at least, starts with having the right ratio in my yarn, my needles, to create the perfect fabric for what I want to knit. Have you ever had the experience, because I certainly have for so long, where I just was following a pattern blindly, and then I wasn't thrilled with the results? One thing that I have found is that a lot of times I would knit garments that I didn't like to wear because they were very thin looking, or the drape was wrong, or they were too thick and bulky, or they were too thin and sort of, poultry looking. I don't know if that's the right word, but like sad, like Linus's blanket looking. So in December, I was asked to do a knitting class for new knitters and teach them how to knit their first scarf. And I thought, what is the number one thing that I wish I knew as a new knitter? And beyond the technique of how to hold the yarn and, the needles and all this, I thought I would love to know how to create beautiful fabric, to have that recipe, that ratio of needle size to yarn weight be just right, like that Goldilocks spot where it just comes together. So since I was teaching this class, and since I had just started with the hand dyeing with my husband, I said, well, let me create kits with the yarn combo that will yield a successful product. And so I knew a few things. I knew it had to be a thicker weight, because it's no fun for beginners to knit with fingering weight, right? And I also knew that before getting them started with the knit and purl stitch, I just want to focus on just knit, garter, and have it be really easy. So together we created this classic knit scarf. And I have shown this before, but what was the big revelation for me was that the fabric that was created by just using one strand of special bulky 1-ply Cheyenne, it's absolutely soft and beautiful, with a very particular brushed mohair together on a size 13 needle, it created this absolutely luscious, delicious fabric. And I became obsessed. This scarf I've worn for every single outing because it is soft, it is light, and it's got it's kind of firmness to it, which I really do like. I like my knits to have a bit of structure. I don't like too much floppiness for most of the knits that I do, because I really do like form in design. And so that was something that I wanted to knit more with this particular fabric. And I'll tell you what I also realized, it's not the same with a 15. It's not the same with a size 13 needle or a 19 needle or a 15 needle. It's 13. 13 is the magic number for this, okay? So when I saw the pattern, I got an email about 2-3 weeks ago, I think. It came from Pearl Soho about a new pattern release. I just jumped on it. And this is the Shawl collar jacket. Okay, So I had a certain thing in mind when I saw this pattern. I said, you know what? I love it. And I right away saw, wow, I can use my yarn combo with the brushed mohair and the one ply together, because it's got the same just garter knit stitch throughout. I said, now I can create a jacket using that. Won't that be fabulous? So I went into this pattern knowing I was going to use this particular yarn combo, which I've since named Formula Number 1. Okay, this is Formula Number 1. It's like Chanel's got number 5, Formula Number 1, because I think there'll be more formulas, but this is like the first one that started this whole journey, that it's about the fabric, that you have to get the right fabric first and customize the pattern numbers to fit your fabric. I was doing it completely opposite. And I was taught that it's okay, like just change the needle size or change, you know, your yarn. But now I start with fabric. Like, let me swatch, let me find my Goldilocks, what I want out of the fabric. So, you know, swatching and using different strands and then saying, okay, do I like this? Do I need to change the needle to get my Goldilocks? Now, once I achieved the Goldilocks, then I said, okay, how does this look compared to what the pattern gauge is? And make adjustments from there. I was certain that I was not going to deviate from my 13 needle, because again, that is the magic number for me, was 13 gives the fabric that I wanted. So I just did the small size pattern. I probably think that it came out smaller than what the pattern calls for, but I don't mind because it is yummy. Okay, I also had another thing that inspired me in the pattern was the ribs. Like, I love these details of having just the raglan detail. Can I bring her a little closer? Yes. You see this raglan detail right here, and those are just carried over beautiful like knit stitches here on the collar as well, which you can see. This is like, so beautiful, so beautiful. And then the back, beautiful. I loved also the front. Now, I had this color in my imagination, and as a kid, I remember going in the 70s. Yeah, I'm that old. So I went, I think it was in 1978. Yeah. With my parents on an overseas flight to Poland on Pan Am Airlines. And I will never, ever, ever forget that experience, because I was wearing, in those days you dressed up for going on flights. It was a special occasion. And I remember I had this white cape that I wore. And this cape was my pride and joy. I was so happy with this cape. It had like little beautiful fringe. It was a soft knit cape. You know, like, it's so funny how we reminisce and it comes out in our knits sometimes, right? We don't even know it subconsciously. I'm thinking, wow, that cape, it probably manifested as this now all these years later. But that cape was so fantastic. And as the next, you know, when you're on the flight and the next morning you're now in Europe, but you haven't landed yet, and they bring you out this beautiful continental breakfast, you know, it was so lovely. And I remember I spilled tea on my cape on that flight, and it was devastating that I ruined my cape. But I was also, I think I must have been thinking about that Pan Am airline logo, which I will try to put here, and that particular blue. TWA and Pan Am in those days, they had a particular blue of their logo, which I then found out for TWA, they would iterate and change that particular shade throughout the years. But in any case, it sort of stuck in my mind, and I just knew that when I knit this jacket, I would want to make the detail in that Pan Am / TWA blue. And so I went to the dye pots and I created my perfect sky blue. I call it Sprouse blue because back in the 80s, I had a beautiful jacket and skirt that was in this sky blue by the designer Steven Sprouse. And that was like the most incredible blue. And so that was similar to the TWA Pan Am blue, and so now it's called Sprouse blue. I dyed it up in a couple of bases, and so I did the same base as, you know, the bulky, the Formula #1 base. And so this is what I started with, the idea that I would hold, that I would actually do the detail as I knit the whole piece. And it turned into an absolute yarn management disaster. Disaster. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought, oh yeah, if I do the edging in blue and then just kind of like go with the white and then bring the blue in, yes, good idea in theory, but as I was going along, the yarn started to tangle. I started to develop weird holes. Like it turned into like an intarsia situation. And what's more, like I didn't see the path coming, like how I would negotiate and know when to switch to the blue and how to manage that. And then would I have like an issue with floats? Anyway, I restarted the whole thing. I mean, I was just on the collar part, so it wasn't like such a big deal, but I said, let me just go all white. I almost gave up on the idea of adding the blue, even though that was in my imagination. I really craved that blue. I knit the whole body except for one sleeve, and then I said, could I possibly reintroduce the blue now? And thankfully, I love this yarn community because everybody shares their, like, when people share their process and their ideas and their knits and what they learned, especially, there have been so many interesting videos recently with people sharing their makes of 2022. Is that the year? Yeah. 2022. And like a common theme was, oh, I learned this new technique. I learned that new technique. And I loved the Rhinebeck sweaters that Caddy Jacks were wearing, and when I realized that, I think it was called the Perot sweater, when I saw that it's possible to crochet in, I just said, okay, I can do this too. So yes, so after seeing the Caddy Jacks Perot video and realizing that in that pattern it is possible to add on crochet detail, I said, well, I'm going to go in and crochet up me a contrasting band. And anyway, it was just so much fun to customize this sweater, this jacket. And I did have a decision to make about the front, whether I was going to have it closed or whether I was going to keep it open. I decided, again, because I am always cold, I decided to go with a closure situation. And that took a little bit of thought because I thought, well, how am I going to close this thing? So I had these buttons, which are so great, and I got them in Vogue Knitting Live a few years ago, way pre-COVID. And by the way, Vogue Knitting Live is coming up next weekend, and I am so excited, and I will be there in the afternoon on Saturday. So if any of you are going to be there, I would love to meet you and see you there. So hopefully we shall meet. So anyway, just putting it out there. Anyway, so I'll be hitting up that button booth. I hope they'll be there. Anyway, these are so vintagey and cool. I thought they would be so perfect. And so I then I just sewed them on, but I needed a way to actually close the button. And so I created these little loops, and I think they're just really fun and cute and a little bit retro, which is adorable. I don't think I have the right shirt on to put this on properly because it's going to be too puffy, but I'm going to do another video where you see the whole thing on. But it's just like the perfect transitional piece going into the spring, because we all know that spring could be really nippy, especially when, like in the Northeast, as we are like in New Jersey, it's been a rather warmish winter. And I'm no groundhog, but I do think that that means we're going to have a coldish spring. Now, like, oh my, how fun is that? Like over jeans. I just ordered a pair of high-waisted jeans to go with this, and I can't wait. Because I just like that little bit, like even in the camera I'm looking, it's got that almost like Chanel-ish vibe going, and I just love it. And that blue is everything. I've been posting pictures of this all week with my progress on Instagram, and a lot of people had commented that they really like it and what yarn I was using, and so I decided to make a couple of kits available for people to make it easy, because I did use like specific yarn. Even when I went here with the detail, it's the same dye lot, but it's a different base, and that was necessary. I didn't want to use the bulky here because it would create too much of a poofy, mottled look, and I wanted it to be crisp and defined, and so I used a lighter weight yarn for that, and it's DK held double, so you just need a little bit of it, but nevertheless it really does add that finish, and I wanted this to have real designer type finishes and effects. And so you can also make this. It was a very straightforward pattern. I will say that I did the small size and followed the pattern exactly. The only change I made was that I did an I-cord bind off for the sleeves, which was the same bind off asked for at the bottom of the body of the sweater. That was my only change, and I do also think that I will recommend, there were parts in the pattern where it was easy to get confused because of the, like the increases and the instructions for that until you get the flow of it. And so I needed to write it down to really understand what I was doing. So I would recommend that. I'm more comfortable with patterns where there's a chart where I could see things graphically and know what is going on, but this was all written out, which is fine, but I could easily lose my place, and so writing things down on a separate piece of paper helped me out a lot. So anyway, what do you think of this? What do you think of the trim? I would love to know your thoughts about it. It's a little bit almost a little preppy. I like it. Anyway, I created a few kits, and they will be available using different color trim. So I'd like to show you. the trims that are going to be available. And oh my gosh, they are fun. This is fluorescent. Whoa. Can you imagine? Like fluorescent trim on that? How adorable. One kit already has a home with that kind of side thing. So if you like any of these and you want to just let me know to hold one for you, I certainly will. This is bubblegum for the pink lovers. I mean, you can't go wrong. But these are fun colors because I think we want happy. This is the classic black midnight. Okay, this is screams to me Chanel, and I love that. So perfect. And last but not least, the one I use, which is Sprouse Blue, the TWA color. And you know what? As I was just thinking about it, I thought, wow, like pockets. I mean, you can just add a pocket. That was very easy. Making this little gauge swatch was 9 stitches, and I went up maybe 10 rows, and then I just did the double crochet edge, and boom. If I make another one and sew it on, I've got me a button. I've got me a button. Not a button, I've got me a pocket. Yeah, how cute would that be? I think maybe I'll be adding pockets. Or it might be too much. I really like this detail. But in any case, you can make customizations. I love that about knitting, is that you make it fit to what you want it to be. All right, so fantastic pattern. Love all the design features in the pattern, all those extra touches. And that's really what sold me on this pattern was the ribbing, you know, what these like little ribs here, those defined places. So exciting. So the kits will be available, limited number of kits, I should say. So to know when they're going up live, I would strongly suggest signing up for the newsletter on boboleros.com and also following me on Instagram, Boboleros on Instagram, bo.boleros. Right now, I've been posting on my personal account, Margaret Wasick, but I think I'm going to be stopping that because it's just becoming like too much yarn mixed with music, and so I have to focus on the music for that one. And also just the time that the update will happen is Wednesday, February the 8th, noon Eastern Standard Time. Okay? And yeah, it's going to be so much fun. I also want to show you a work in progress. So this has been taking all my time. I wish I had more to share with you, but I will share with you another beginnings of a Saturday shrug. And this is using just the brushed mohair, the same one used in formula number 1. This is it alone. And so in the same kind of midnight black color, the same ivory color. And then for this middle kind of mauve, I have quite a bit of Nutidin in my stash. Nutidin. Have you guys ever knit with Nutidin, which is an unspun yarn? And this is in the parallel color. And I'm like really, I love it. It is a different experience. It takes a little getting used to because as you could see, it's like gauzy and it splits. But the magic of it is that, and talking about yarn magic, if you hold it between your fingers, it does not budge. It's like totally stiff. But if you give it a little bit of air, it floats. It like dissolves. It's absolutely stunning and incredible. And I am on their Patreon, and I bit the bullet, and they just had a special update for Patreon people, and I couldn't help myself. They had a yellow color, and I thought, how amazing would that be to knit in yellow for the spring with something else. So that will be something coming up. But yeah, thrilled with this. It is a different kind of feeling. This one is light like a cloud. And I think I will vary the stripes, and I might do it more like a funnel this time around. So like really close to the neck, narrow, and then I'm going to, so I'm starting already on the bottom, obviously. So I'm going to decrease when I get here and turn it into like, almost like a dicky situation. Yeah, that's personally what I'm going to do, just to try it, because I like having options and I like keeping it by my neck. So anyway, I love it. I love all of it, and it's all very exciting. So I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining. It's been such a lovely experience, and I would love to hear what you're knitting, what you're planning on knitting for springtime. It feels like, yeah, like we've turned the corner with winter, got like that new energy coming up. And also let me know if you plan on attending Bow Knitting Live. And also I'll be on Christy Glass's Patreon. We are doing an interview and it's happening this weekend. I don't know when that is going to actually publish, but I am so looking forward to speaking with Christy. She's one of my inspirations in the knitting world. I love what she knits and her style and her energy. And I am really excited to be on her program and talking about the Boboleros brand and what we do and all the fun stuff. So anyway, thank you so much for this time together, and can't wait to see you next week. Okay, bye for now.